Hello my friends, I hope you've got better weather than we have. Today here it is pouring, cats and dogs as we say. This is a look in the dark, chapter 8, Windows, and this is the first part of maybe 4 parts or something like that to this particular chapter. It's a long chapter. Carol Green sat in the reception area of the bookfinder's office in Clapham and watched as a pretty young blonde busied herself at her desk. She looked up from her paperwork and began a conversation about the weather, so Carol asked her how the book business was going. "Well, you seem busy," she added. "Yeah, Miss McGovern, I am busy. We do much of our work through the post, both with the other book dealers and with customers." "Do you enjoy working for the Major?" She hoped the question was not too pointed. The laugh was very much a schoolgirl's laugh. "Well, the pay's good. I do better than 5 days here than some of my friends who have to work 6. She lowered her voice to a whisper. "He's a bit cold though. No humour or friendliness." The girl was probably 17, very eye-catching in a not over-the-top Dolly Bird kind of a way, good taste in clothes. Imagine, Carol thought, your daughter working here with him. The office was not a bad environment, even though it looked pretty run down from the outside. It was fairly presentable once the door was entered. It could even be described as having a touch of class about it. It was the boss who was the cause for concern. No mother who knew Stanhurt would want her daughter working anywhere near him. "So you keep all the Major's records then, do you?" "I really like your accent. Is it Scottish?" Carol thought it was this London girl that had an accent. She wondered if the girl was being evasive, but she wasn't. "No, I'm Irish from the north." "Oh. I just keep his book records. He has other stuff upstairs to do with animals, I think." The girl stood up and turned on the photocopier. "I see. His wife told him he should have a computer, but he said that if William the Conqueror managed without one, so could he." "Why William the Conqueror?" "Oh, he's always gone on about him. Says if I had more Norman blood I'd get more work done. Is there much trouble near your home?" Carol thought that she had questioned the girl enough, so she took a few minutes to enlighten the young lady about the differing viewpoints that could be described as the Irish problem. She found that the young lady, who was named Sue, was very interested, and although she had an Irish uncle, he never talked about it. Following a short Irish history lesson, during which Sue asked some intelligent questions, the girl returned to her work. In the 15 minutes that Carol had to wait, there were 3 phone calls, 2 of which were about books, and these Sue handled with friendly efficiency. The other call was different. Sue did not handle it herself, and Carol listened as she gazed out of the office window. "Right, Mr. Carl, I'll put you through to Major Stanhurt." Carol committed the name to memory. 5 minutes later, and the intercom buzzed. A commanding voice ordered Sue to show Mrs. McGovern the way up, and hurry up with the coffee, girl. Carol climbed the stairs, which were well lit, showing off a deep red carpet and several black and white drawings of castles hanging on the cream painted walls. Entering the door bearing the sign reading Major Stanhurt, she took note that there were 2 other doors on the landing. The Major was sitting behind a large wooden desk, which was very tidy, and he rose and extended his hand as Carol approached. Carol took his hand, and staring into those cool blue eyes, she wanted to shudder. Shaking his hand confidently and exchanging business-like greetings, she accepted his invitation to sit facing him across the desk. Behind the Major, but a little to the left of his desk, there was a window, and Carol could see that, as she had thought, she was now at the back of the building. "My receptionist tells me that you want to locate a particular book, but that there would be more requests in the future, and you wish to talk to me." "Yes, Major, I collect wildlife and natural history publications published prior to 1900, but with the odd 20th century classic thrown in." "I see. And you have a large collection?" "Most of them are back home in the States, Major." Carol lied to paint a deceptive picture for him. But at least the image of all Danny's books in the study back in Frome was honest. "We live in Texas. But we're doing a European tour just now, partly pleasure and also with a little business for my husband." We were at the embassy last week and someone gave me your name. He offered me your phone number, but I got your address too. Trouble is, I will need to call for the book and maybe a few others, probably fairly regularly whenever we're in London. I'm afraid I do not like the trust of the postal services. That is, since a very early copy of The Natural History of Selborne was posted to me in 1980, and I'm still waiting for its arrival. Gilbert White. I could get a copy fairly speedily. No, Major, it's okay. I got another copy in Dublin. Here's something else I seek. I've acquired 2 beautiful books. They're written by the Reverend J.G. Wood. Yes, I know his work. Excellent line drawings. Right, well, I have Volume 2, Birds, and Volume 3, Reptiles, Fish and Mollusks. I would like you to find me a copy of Volume 1, Mammalia. That should be no problem at all, Mrs. McGovern, for a fee, of course. How clumsy to mention money at this point. Carol, the farmer's daughter from County Tyrone, knew that Major Stanhurt posed as a cultured gentleman, but would be suspect to any real gent at this point. Money will not be a problem, Major. Sue arrived with a tray containing steaming coffee, a bowl of sugar and a jug of milk. She placed it on the desk, and Stanhurt didn't even thank her. Carol did, and Sue gave her a very sweet smile as she left. Carol looked around the room enjoying her coffee. She got the distinct feeling that he was not rushing because he liked the presence of a young woman in the room, and that made her cringe. She took in the large desk of solid wood, the other chair, a large metal filing cabinet with the bottom drawer open and containing suspended files. There was nothing else aside from the carpet, which ran on in deep red from the landing. There were just 2 pictures on the walls. As she had turned to thank Sue for the coffee, she'd noticed a picture of a medieval soldier, probably Norman, on the wall behind her. Behind Stanhurt there was a very good black and white drawing of a barn owl, and as she took in the unfortunate mouse it was holding in its beak, she hoped there was nothing prophetic about it. The intercom buzzed. "Call for you, sir." The city accent of Sue announced, "Put it through to line 3. Excuse me, Mrs. McGovern." Carol didn't fail to notice the forced politeness shown to her and the contrasting arrogance with which he addressed the lovely Sue. Stanhurt left the room, closing the door, and she heard him enter another room. Carol was thanking God for this opportunity as she rose and walked to the window. Below it there was a seemingly disused factory across the other side of a rough yard with clumps of weeds and a few bushes around the perimeter, and near to a crumbling wall. A focus zoomed in on the window itself, which was an old sash one, no bolts, nothing, just a small bar that slid across to secure the top and bottom panes together, stopping them from sliding up or down. "Dead on," she whispered. A further look at the yard and she could see there was a gate off to the right, but it was old and rusting, and a large stone was wedging it back against the wall. It looked as if it hadn't been closed for a decade. The ruined factory buildings, with broken windows, and the newer looking post-war extension reminded her of some of the old disused linen mills in Ulster. She could not see what was on the same side of the yard as the Major's office, but she could check this out afterwards. As she turned to sit back down, she saw a name on the file that had been on Stanhurt's side of the desk. The name was J.J. Kyle. She would have liked to open it, but that might be pushing it, so she glanced back at the mouse in the picture. A few seconds later, as she drained her coffee, she heard the approach of the Major. Apologising for the delay, went to the filing cabinet, took out a green suspension file and brought it to his desk. "As you can see, Mrs. McGovern, I am busy in the book business today, so I have a note of the title of your book and it will not be too hard to acquire it. Where are you staying?" Carol had thought of that. "Over the next few weeks we'll be in Paris, Geneva, Venice, Barcelona and Berlin. I may be in London in between, but if not, it will be on my return. I will call for it when I am next here. Do you require a securing fee?" "That would be normal practice. The book you request will be £35, but my fee is 33%, approximately £12. "As I said, Major, money is not a problem. Let's say £50 and I'll pay for it now, but don't let me down. I also want that book." She couldn't resist being a little cheeky to this haughty criminal. He seemed to respond to her business-like manner, and he smiled, but it was a very chill, wind kind of smile, like the sunshine breaking through the cloud on a December day back in Tyrone, it seemed. Do I pay downstairs? Yes, and make sure that girl gives you a receipt. Smiling at the irony of that comment, Carol rose and held out her hand. Goodbye, Major. As he took hold of her hand, the Major asked, what line of business is your husband in, Mrs. McGovern? Armaments. Danny would kill her for that, she was sure, but even if it was like saying Jerry Adams was a unionist, she could see that the steel blue eyes were interested. Really? Military armaments? Oh, I never ask questions about his work, Major. I know he works very hard, employs a lot of people, but my only direct connection with the business is hosting dinner parties for clients when he asks me to. A little Irish hospitality goes down well anyway, you know. As she left the room, Carol decided that the battle-worn face of the Norman soldier looked more compassionate than the Major. Giving the Norman a wink, she opened the door and unhurriedly descended the stairs, looking at the pictures as she went. She was trying to apply the counsel of someone she knew once, who said that most people create suspicion because they hurry away from the scene of the crime. She wanted to behave as if the wife of a wealthy American arms dealer would, in the way that a wife of a wealthy American arms dealer would, not like a child who'd just thrown a stone at a window. After exchanging a few niceties with Sue, paying her bill and getting a receipt without asking for it, she stepped out into the street. She wanted to laugh but resisted the urge, aware that it might attract attention that she didn't want. "Well, Danny boy," she shouted, inside her head, "I think I got us another step along the high wire." Carol was amazed at the seeming lack of security. If there was an alarm system, it was well hidden. Next to the office there was an empty house, then a cafe, followed by the wall of the factory yard. She took note that a sign on the cafe wall advertised 7 days a week opening. She walked on round the corner, smiling at the little black and white boys playing football together. "Do you think Northern Ireland will win tonight, boys?" "Not a chance, missus," shouted one of the lads, "but the Republic might." The banter between the boys now seemed to suggest that they were all budding soccer managers, and Carol continued her walk around the next corner. On her side of the pavement was the empty factory wall, and across the road a line of somewhat neglected terrace houses, occupied but not attended to. This could certainly be Belfast, Carol whispered. A young postman sped past on a bicycle, and she returned his smile, not noticing that he nearly crashed into a car because he was looking at her from behind. A taxi drove past her, but Carol was aware that even on a weekday, mid-morning, this was not a very busy back street. She came to the factory gate, and glancing up at his window she could see that Stanhurt had his back to her as he sat at his desk. A sign on the gate read in peeling red paint, "Keep out, no trespassers." But it was as she had thought, looking out of the office, that the gate had not been closed for years. Crossing the yard entrance, Carol could see the familiar blue BMW parked under Stanhurt's office on the rough yard. She felt certain there was not any alarm system at the back, and was bemused, as it seemed so odd that a man who worshipped the Norman prince could be so lax in protecting his property. There was no back door to the office, but there was to the cafe. She guessed that the single yellow line outside the front of the building was the reason Stanhurt parked the expensive car in the rubble-filled yard. He didn't want to get a parking ticket. Carol left the area at a reasonable but not unusual pace. She was hoping that a few seconds of observation at the gate had not drawn the Major's attention. Of course, she did not want to arouse suspicion so as to blow the whole investigation, and also she still had a mental picture of the mouse in the barn owl's beak. She was not in great fear, but she was well aware that the animalistic animal trader did not believe in taking human prisoners. So that's the first part of Chapter 8, Windows. So how would Carol's visit to the office benefit them now? What would their next steps be? The next part becomes more exciting. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for listening. Love to you, my friends. Bye bye for now. Bye bye.